You woke up this morning and ate breakfast. Around noon, you probably grabbed lunch. And tonight, you will sit down for dinner. You did not question it. You never have. It just feels like the natural order of things. But here is what almost no one talks about. Nobody decided this for you based on biology. No doctor prescribed it. No ancient wisdom handed it down. 3 meals a day is not a law of nature. It is a story, and it is one of the most fascinating stories in all of human history. Let us go back, way back. Around 23,000 years ago, on the shores of what is now the Sea of Galilee in Israel, there was a place called Ohala II. Archaeologists found the remains of small brush-walled dwellings there, each one built around a hearth. Scattered near those hearths was evidence of over 140 types of seeds and nuts. There were bones too, from birds, fish, and small mammals. The people who lived here were hunter-gatherers. They ate whenever food was available. Not 3 times a day, not twice, just whenever. There were no meal times because there was no guaranteed food supply. Some days they feasted, some days they went hungry. The very concept of a structured daily eating schedule would have meant nothing to them. Eating was not a routine. It was a result. The result of a successful hunt or a lucky morning of foraging. Then something happened that changed everything. Around 10,000 BCE, agriculture took hold in the Fertile Crescent, across parts of modern-day Iraq, Iran, and Turkey. For the first time, people had a reliable food supply. They did not need to chase food anymore. Food stayed put, so people stayed put too. Permanent settlements formed. Cooking grew more complex. Meals became more communal. But even then, 3 structured meals a day did not exist. What people ate and when still depended entirely on culture, geography, and daylight. Ancient Egypt gives us one of the earliest pictures of structured eating. Egyptians typically ate 2 meals, a light morning meal of bread and beer, and a heavier evening meal with vegetables, lentils, and whatever protein was available. 2 meals, not 3. The ancient Greeks were a little closer to what we would recognize today. They had a small morning meal called akritisma, which was basically bread dipped in wine. Then came ariston, a midday meal, and finally deepnon, a more substantial evening gathering. But not everyone ate all 3. These were not fixed, time-locked events. The Romans are perhaps the most surprising case of all. The Roman Empire was one of the most organized civilizations the world had ever seen. You might expect them to have had a strict meal schedule. They did not. The Romans were deeply suspicious of eating more than once a day. Historian Caroline Yellum explains that they were obsessed with digestion and believed that eating multiple meals was simply a form of gluttony. Their primary meal was called cena, eaten around midday. A small morning snack, called ientaculum, existed, but it was barely treated as a real meal. This one meal model stayed dominant across much of Europe for centuries. Then came the moment when European settlers arrived in the Americas. They were genuinely shocked by how Native Americans ate. According to historian Abigail Carroll, author of 3 Squares, the settlers watched indigenous people eat in ways that seemed chaotic to them. Native Americans fasted when necessary, adjusted their food intake with the seasons, and followed no fixed daily schedule. The Europeans called this uncivilized. That bias would eventually help spread 3 meals a day across the entire world. So, where exactly did the 3 meal structure actually come from? The answer takes us to the 16th century Europe and a world that was beginning to organize itself around the clock. The British Royal Navy was one of the first large institutions to formalize 3 meals a day. Since at least the 1500s, the Navy served sailors 3 set meals built around the shipboard routine. A simple breakfast of ship's biscuits and salted meat, a midday lunch as the main meal, and a lighter dinner in the evening. The reasoning was entirely practical. Sailors needed fuel at predictable intervals. Physical naval work was relentless, and the schedule had to match it. But what truly locked 3 meals into the lives of ordinary people was the Industrial Revolution. Starting around 1760 in Britain and spreading across Europe and North America over the following century, the Industrial Revolution changed how people related to time itself. For the first time, large numbers of people were not working in fields with loose seasonal rhythms. They were working in factories with rigid, standardized hours. You clocked in and out at a fixed time. You had one break in the middle of the day. Breakfast before work, lunch at midday, dinner after the shift. It mapped perfectly onto the new industrial schedule. 3 meals a day was not a discovery. It was a solution, an organizational answer to the demands of factory life. As cities grew and people moved away from farms, the morning meal became increasingly important. The word breakfast literally means to break the fast of the night before. In medieval Christian Europe, eating before morning mass was often discouraged, so breakfast as a regular full meal was slow to catch on. But skipping a morning meal while working a 10 or 12-hour industrial shift was not a spiritual discipline. It was a health hazard. The morning meal became essential. Dinner shifted, too. Before industrialization, the main meal was eaten at midday, when natural light was at its strongest. But as artificial lighting improved and factories kept workers busy well into the afternoon, the main meal migrated to the evening. By the mid-1800s, dinner after work had become the daily anchor for most people in Europe and the United States. Then, in the early 20th century, the final piece fell into place. Someone you might not expect helped cement breakfast as a daily ritual. A serial entrepreneur named John Harvey Kellogg. Kellogg invented cornflakes as a health food, and through aggressive marketing campaigns in the 1920s and 1930s, the idea that breakfast was the most important meal of the day spread everywhere. It was not pure science. It was also commerce. Cereal companies needed people eating breakfast every single morning, and it worked. Now, here is the most important question of all. Does your biology actually want you to eat 3 times a day? The answer might surprise you. Inside every human being is a circadian rhythm, your body's internal 24-hour clock. Research published in Current Biology shows that the timing of your meals affects blood glucose, insulin sensitivity, metabolism, and even the behavior of fat cells at a cellular level. In the morning, cortisol rises, and your body becomes remarkably efficient at processing food. Insulin sensitivity is near its peak, meaning carbohydrates and sugars are more likely to be converted into usable energy instead of stored fat. Eat that exact same meal late at night, and the outcome changes dramatically. Blood sugar rises higher, sleep quality worsens, fat storage increases. Your hunger hormones, grain and leptin, follow this rhythm too. In fact, your body begins preparing for meals before you even take the first bite. Scientists call this physiological food anticipation. Your biology is not passive. It learns your habits, predicts your routines, and adjusts itself around them. And that reveals something important. What matters most is not necessarily the number of meals you eat, but when you eat them. 2 meals, 3 meals, or even 4 can all work reasonably well, as long as most food is consumed during daylight hours when the body is metabolically prepared for it. But biology is only part of the story. For more than 23,000 years, humans have gathered around food not just to survive, but to connect. Long before factories, office schedules, or serial advertisements existed, shared meals were how communities built trust, strengthened relationships, and signaled safety. Research in social psychology consistently finds that people who eat regularly with others report greater happiness, stronger social bonds, and a deeper sense of belonging. 3 meals a day, whatever its historical origins, gives us 3 recurring opportunities to do something profoundly human. So, why do we eat 3 meals a day? Because sailors needed schedules. Because factory workers needed predictable breaks. Because medieval Christians could not eat before Mass. Because industrial society reorganized life around the clock. Because cereal companies turned breakfast into a business opportunity. And because underneath all of that history, human biology already operated on rhythms that happened to align with it. 3 meals a day is not a biological law, but it is not a meaningless invention either. It is the result of centuries of religion, agriculture, industry, commerce, and human physiology gradually shaping one another over time. Tonight, you will probably sit down for dinner like billions of people before you,